Now the Pacific is ground zero for a new arms race as the US-China rivalry erupts beneath the waves. Beijing's silent hunters grow deadlier. American subs pack cutting-edge tech, but Washington struggles to outbuild its surging rival. With every launch in commission, the world's two superpowers are racing ahead for global naval supremacy.
The US Navy's submarine force has reigned supreme, an invisible, lethal arm of American might. Now the Americans have a new competitor. It's not the Russians, it's the Chinese.
A Chinese destroyer closes to 150 yards. No shots, no words, just a targeting radar snapping on. You clicked for a near collision, you're in the right place. But the real fight wasn't steel on steel, it was sensor on sensor. Stay with me as we decode what the USS Higgins recorded. Every radar frame, every bearing, the SLQ-32V7 lighting up, and an MH-60 are capturing infrared proof. By the end, you'll see why the data, not the distance, was the weapon, and how that paint becomes leverage in Washington and across the alliance. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video.
The South China Sea is boiling again, and this time it's not just about any disputed reef or any fishing boat. A dramatic mid-air confrontation demanding that Canberra should respect its sovereignty and stop what it calls provocative surveillance activities. Well, the timing, it couldn't be more explosive. The Chinese Foreign Ministry went a step further, calling it a cover-up, saying that Australia was just trying to provoke China and then play a victim. Here, China even launched a formal diplomatic protest here.
You came for the near collision. The real strike lived in the air. A targeting radar blinked on at knife fight range and stayed there long enough to count breaths. That was the shove. Steel never touched. Signals did. At 150 yards, two bridges looked straight into each other's windows. Higgins held course and speed, steady voice on the con. The Type 052D angled in shallow, bow high, hull numbers clear.
In the last decade, China has launched new classes of nuclear and diesel-electric submarines at breakneck speed. China's new submarines are equipped with revolutionary, silent new propulsion systems. They are getting quieter and more lethal. While the US still holds the lead in core technology, the stealth of its Virginia-class submarines remains unmatched. Its industrial base is buckling, armed with cutting-edge anti-ship missiles and now even hypersonic weapons. The US struggles to produce more than a handful of new submarines a year, leaving its aging fleet vulnerable to China's relentless shipbuilding blitz.
In the Combat Information Center, headsets tightened and screens filled. Operators set to record. Every sweep, every change. No chatter on the net, just clipped calls inside the skin of the ship and a clock rolling. They hailed in English and Mandarin. Nothing came back. Dead air can be louder than threats when the geometry tightens. The worry wasn't a plume of smoke or a hatch opening. It was a radar mode change. That quiet jump from broad search to a focused stare that says, I see you, I'm on you. The shift hits your console like a tap on the shoulder. SLQ-32V7 is the ship's electronic ears. Think of it as a legal recorder wrapped in armor. It does not jam. It does not volley. It listens, labels, and locks the moment in time. It tags radar types and modes, stamps bearings, logs pulse patterns, and ties it all to the ship's own position and heading. When you need proof, this is the chain you pull. Higgins hunted for telltales. Track while scan shows a radar still sweeping the horizon while keeping light touch on multiple contacts. Single target track drops the pretense and holds the beam on one hull. The sets pulse repetition and beam dwell tell you intent, short taste say scan, long, steady dwell says targeting. If electronic support measures on the other side were active, you'd see cross cues that confirm a fire control picture, even without a missile door moving. Overhead, an MH-60 are added eyes and heat. Infrared video washed the Chinese arrays in bright spots when the emitters ran hot. Optical shots caught the face of each panel, the angle of the mast, even deck crews at stations. The Seahawk's time code matched the ship's EW clock. Frame by frame, they stacked the Hellos footage against the SLQ-32V7 tracks and built a single timeline. What the ear heard, the lens saw. This is gray zone doctrine. No rounds fired, no water cannon. A radar paint at 150 yards sends a message, close enough to rattle, silent enough to blur intent, recorded enough to play back in rooms where words cost less than ships. It pressures the watch team to flinch. It tests limits. It leaves a trail that can be argued, but not erased. At the speeds used for a tight transit, seconds are your whole budget. Bow-on alignment looks clean until a small starboard drift eats the margin. Rudders bite. Wake bends. You have room, until you do not. The threat here isn't just steel crossing steel. It's the denial of miscalculation. If you turn early, you yield. If you hold and record, you make the other crew own the move. So what did Higgins actually bag? A log that reads like a charge sheet. Mode shifts from search to track, with dwell times long enough to qualify as a stare. Bearings that walk in step with the 052 ds angle of approach. Timestamps that sit next to unanswered hails. SLQ, 32V7 entries that call out pulse patterns consistent with a targeting mode. Overhead, the Seahawk's infrared frames brighten in the same seconds the log says the beam pinned. Optical stills show the arrays oriented as the bearings tighten. Single package. Clean chain. That is the quiet win. Not a splash. A stack of data. And it travels far better than hull dents and excuses. You can brief it to a commander, hand it to a lawyer, and lay it in front of an ally who asks what close really looks like. The ship never shouted. The record did. Now that you've seen how the strike landed without a shot, we go under the skin. We break down the detector, how SLQ-32V7 catches the lock, sorts the modes, and turns a gray zone pass into leverage that lasts longer than a near miss. Proof wins gray zone fights. Not splash, not noise. A clean chain of sensor data turns a dangerous pass into deterrence capital you can brief, publish, and wield.